Mac, man, how the hell are you?
Got to get used to turning on my mic. Good weekend, Joe DeCamera. You described it well.
Thank you.
You know I'm a sports nut, and I'm working both Saturday and Sunday, so I was on as the World Series ended, which is both good and bad, because you get the immediate reaction thereafter, which you like, but you'd rather just be sitting and watching and paying attention rather than trying to host the show at the same exact time. So Saturday night was cool, and then yesterday, even though the Eagles didn't play, things in the league seemed to go the Eagles' way.
A lot of them.
Yeah, they really did. One after the other.
Including for the audience listening right now, maybe didn't watch Sunday Night Football. Jaden Daniels got hurt late.
Yeah.
Might be out for the year. Probably will be. And that's a shame. There's no celebration there. I'm just saying that's a reality. I mean, this division we already thought was like totally the Eagles for the taking, barring their own serious injury. Now it's even more so. I mean, the Eagles are well set up there. Look, we'll get to the Eagles thing in a moment. Let me just say this, World Series Game 7, phone line's there for you. It's one of the greatest games I've ever seen. I'll tell you right out of the gate, I think it's the best baseball game I've ever seen. Now, obviously, that's highly debatable because, we've all seen hundreds or thousands of games, thousands for most of us. But I think it's the greatest baseball game I've seen. And I was mesmerized watching it for those, I don't know, Seltzer, what was it, 3.5, 4 hours the other day?
Yeah, 4 hours, something like that.
I mean, James, that was...
I was right there with you. I said the same thing. I think it's the best baseball game I've ever seen. It's arguably the best sports game I've ever seen, in the discussion.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I took the night and spent 11 innings watching it. The team I wanted to win didn't win, but I'm just, honestly, even as I was rooting for the Blue Jays, I was just grateful as a sports fan that I got to witness it. That's honestly how I felt about it.
I agree.
I didn't want it to end.
I agree with you.
And I was going, it's got to end soon. I'm falling asleep. But
no, it was if you missed it, I'm just telling you missed something that was extraordinary, like really, truly extraordinary. Obviously, at the end, it breaks the Dodgers' way. They made enough plays. It brings up the Phillies conversation about making plays or not making plays. You got the Dodgers second baseman throws to home, and that was a forced play. But unlike the throw from Turner wasn't a little off. Turner's a little bit to the side. Look,
the throw from Kirkring was the same exact thing.
Yeah,
bases loaded. All you got to do is catch the ball. He throws it over JT's head.
Right.
So we dealt with the same thing, and we didn't deal with it well.
Totally.
And both teams in that game on Friday night made infield throws to the plate to gun guys down, which, great point, a texter made with me, tweeter on Saturday. Why do guys slide into home when it's a force play?
Out, yeah, it's
Come
weird.
On, run through it.
You got to run the fastest you possibly can, and that means through the base or the plate. Why are you sliding?
It's like you're running to first base. It's like you're running to first base. Same concept.
Same thing. And the only way you should ever dive into first base is if the throw's off the bag and you think the guy's got a chance to tag you. Otherwise, you're an idiot
for
trying to slide when you can just run the fastest you can straight through the base.
All right, so it was an amazing, if you missed it, just trust us on this. It was amazing. Obviously, if you saw it, we'd love to hear from you. 215-592-9494, both as it relates to the Phils, but also just as a standalone game and a standalone series. Clearly one of the best 7-game series ever. For my money, the best Game 7 ever. For my money, the best baseball game I've ever seen. So all of that on the table, 215-592-9494. All right, let's get to the NFL. Let's get to the Eagles, and let's get to what we saw yesterday, which, of course, was not the Eagles, but a lot of other teams. Jody, I ask you, James, Rhea, and everyone today at 215-592-9494. After watching big slate of games yesterday, Jody, 3 different windows of games, from 1 all the way through 11, whatever, how it relates to the Eagles, Jody. What stood out to you, and as you bring it back to the Eagles, what you're thinking? Talk to me.
The most on-point thing is their next 2 games are the Packers and the Lions.
Yep.
And I watched both of them play rather poorly yesterday.
Yep.
Packers worse, but the Lions got close, but I thought their defense was better than what it was. J.J. McCarthy's moving the ball down the field against them with ease. I know they got Jefferson, and I know it's an upgrade from Carson Wentz. Sorry for all you Carson Wentz fans. Reality's reality.
Not too many of them.
No. And Minnesota's done. Eagles already had that W in their back pocket.
Yep.
So the teams that they're supposed to be competing with in the NFC, just aren't as good as the Eagles. Now, if the Eagles go out and lose next week to the Packers by 10 points, all right, I'll have to eat crow. But I don't think that's happening. Eagles, on paper, they're the best team in the NFC. By record, they're the best team in the NFC. And I think 2 weeks from now, after they beat both the Lions and the Packers, there'll be no debate as to whether they're the best team in the NFC.
So I think a lot of people will say that and even more. Rhea, number one thing that stood out to you across the league as it relates to the Eagles, what is it?
The Packers aren't as good as they Here's the funny thing. When Jerry Jones got rid of Micah Parsons, it wasn't the thinking he's not good against the run. They were terrible against the run yesterday. Rico Dowdle had 130 yards. They had 11 first downs rushing. I mean, that was their game plan. I thought, and they've lost to the Browns. So to me, and they probably lost their star tight end, Tucker Kraft, at ACL. So I felt a lot better by the end of yesterday.
So James, we had a ton of football to watch yesterday. What hit you?
Well, first and foremost, it hit me how it was hard to really lock in on football after watching like the greatest, most intense sport. I
actually agree with that.
I felt so happy the Eagles weren't playing because I was like, I don't know if I can get up for an Eagles game. Like, how can it compare to what I just watched last night? Outside of that, I think that everyone's on point. I think you look around the league and it's just, there's no great teams. You know, the teams that were the Packers, the Lions, all these teams that we think, oh, this is a really big, awesome, like there's no one great. We saw with the Bills and Chiefs, like the Bills just lost two out of three and then they beat the Chiefs. Like, I just think the league's really wide open right now, and that was my main takeaway yesterday.
So the league is really wide open, and maybe that should be the number one thing, but I'll tell you the number one thing I've written down, because I've got 3 things written down here, and there's a lot of ways to react to obviously what we saw and as it relates to the Eagles, but here are my 3, and I'll give you my number 1 right out of the gate, right from my piece of paper. Here's what it says. The Eagles might be the best team in football.
Bang.
Yeah.
Now, that's ironic when you consider they've got a lot of flaws. Some are pretty big. Now, they're trying to patch them up. You know, they signed Brandon Graham, obviously, recently. They've now acquired 2 different cornerbacks. So Howie is trying to address them. But we know the issues this year. They've been pretty abundant on both sides of the ball. And yet, despite that, they may be the best team in football. Now don't get it twisted. There's like, I think 4 teams in the NFC right now at 6-2. So while they are technically the 1 seed because of tiebreaker realities, it's not like they're head and shoulders better than the rest. And I don't even know that they are better than the rest, but I'll tell you this, if I had to put my money on one of them, I'd put my money on the Eagles. So that's my number 1. Number 2, Jalen not turning the ball over is really freaking amazing and important. And
understated.
You know what I mean, Jody? You watch these other games and you see the swings that happen when a quarterback or a running back...
In the red zone with the Packers.
Of course. Yeah. Like, you see turnovers, and then you remember, Jody, like... Because, you know, I've been a big Jalen doubter, obviously, and, you know, but, I mean, his ability to not turn it over is unbelievable, Jody.
Now, hopefully he stays that way, because going into yesterday's action, the team that turned it over least in the National Football League was the Colts.
Yeah.
And I watched some of that game.
Oof.
Daniel Jones turned back into a pumpkin this weekend. Interceptions, fumbles, strip sacks. The Colts had the best record going into the weekend.
Sure.
Not anymore. They just looked they looked bad. They were worse than pedestrian. So if you want to look at the whole league, nobody really trusts them to be a Super Bowl team yet because none of them have any experience. They've been there before. But they had been the best team on the field. Yeah. Not yesterday they weren't.
Yeah, they remind me a lot of Minnesota from last year. You know, you got the quarterback out of nowhere that starts playing well. And then, and it wasn't a shock that Minnesota didn't go far in the playoffs last year. It won't shock me if Daniel Jones, you know, flubs it up, you know, division round, maybe even wild card round, depending on how the seeds shake out. Look, 215-592-9494. The other thing that to me is the main thing from yesterday, and it absolutely goes without saying, but I'll say it, the Eagles should cruise to the NFC East title. I mean, it's,
buddy.
Like, it just feels like a, what's that term? Fait accompli?
Fait accompli.
Fait accompli, boys and girls.
Wouldn't it be nice to not talk about not having a repeat winner in the NFC East for 20 years
done.
again?
20
Wouldn't that
years.
be cool? You know?
That will no longer be referenced.
Yes. All right, so look, 215-592-9494. Your thoughts on all of this. What we saw across the league yesterday, how it relates to the Eagles. I mean, you see teams like the Packers, the Lions. Obviously, the game of the day, you know, marquee-wise, maybe not entertainment-wise, although it was pretty solid. But marquee-wise was KC and Buffalo. So you got two of the best quarterbacks in pro football. How you size them up related to Jalen. Look, the whole thing's on the table. 215-592-9494, plus the World Series, which was, in a word, although I could use more than one, but in a word, remarkable. Joe DeCamera, Jody Mack, he's in for John today. John will be in tomorrow on 94 WIP.